Afternoon. I'd like to call the finance meeting to order. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to our first topic for discussion. It's the Cumberland Valley High School Workforce Development Program. With us today is Dr. Fred Witham. Doctor, welcome.
Thank you. It's been a year since we spoke. I'm going to leave you these.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is here okay? Well, lots happened, and first I have to thank everybody at Retraining and our local businesses who have been involved with this process. We have totally revamped our graduation requirements. They were officially adopted as of June. We felt that we were working well within the regulations of the State Department of Education, but when you get innovative and you start to think a little bit outside the box, you always want to make sure that you're not too far outside the box. I'm pleased to report that yesterday afternoon I spoke with one of the undersecretaries of education, and other than answering a few questions, which actually I already knew the answers to, we are approved by the Department of Education to say we are in fact working within the regulations of the state. So this graduation year, we will be offering on top of our high school diploma certificates. The first level certificate will be workforce ready. They will be students who will have worked through a specific series of courses. Those courses are either identified by the district as a preset sequence, or students may choose their own pathway. If we have a student who wants to do something unique between all the electives that we offer at Cumberland Valley School District, as well as the fact that the entire HAC library of courses, as well as Shippensburg University and Harrisburg University, are now open to our students at a greatly reduced rate. So between what they can take, between our offerings, HAC, SHIP, and HU, there's very little that we cannot address in terms of the students' desire to enter the workforce. On a minimum pathway, we are preparing students to become workforce ready for entry-level positions. And on top of their diploma, if they complete their sequence, they will receive a workforce ready certificate. If along the path of achieving a workforce certificate, they demonstrate competencies beyond what is required of a high school student. They could take a college class. They could take a VOTEC class that leads to a professional or an industrial certificate. They could gain industry certificates, Flagger, OSHA, a number of others, but they clearly demonstrate that they have mastered skills that are required post-high school graduation. We're going to indicate that they are not just workforce ready, but they are career ready. They've dedicated themselves to a pathway, to an area that they were serious enough to do more than was just required of them. If in doing those things, they happen to also take 10 honors classes, AP, IB, college and high school, dual enrollment classes, and they receive 10 honors credits within their sequence of classes, they will receive an advanced post-secondary study certificate. And these certificates are stackable so that you can receive your workforce ready, then you can receive your career post-secondary ready, as well as your advanced post-secondary. One of the things that we really find exciting about this is that our focus is to make sure that our students just don't plan to graduate, but that they graduate with a plan. So the pathways that we've set up, again, working very closely with Katie, in heavy equipment operation, IT and computer science, hospitality and tourism. Advanced manufacturing is a big one that we're ready to begin to roll out, as well as all of our vocational ones. And we're working with healthcare right now, and particularly with UPMC is at the table. And I believe that by the time we roll out our educational planning guide for next school year, we will actually have relationships that kids can schedule in, as long as they meet the requirements, not only with post-secondary education opportunities, but with local business and industry. And again, we've targeted those ones that we are aware that the county has lots of viable jobs open for our students. But I think also, particularly in advanced manufacturing, things that we really need to do to continue to develop a workforce to have a much more diverse economy. Warehouses are great. We're not going to complain about our warehouses. But I think particularly with advanced manufacturing and IT and some of the other things that we're looking at doing with our kids, that can really help attract and retain important business and industry to the area. A student who receives 23 credits in the Cumberland Valley School District is eligible for a high school diploma. Traditionally, it's always been around 23 credits. What we've asked our students to do in Cumberland Valley, in Cumberland Valley, we've set some things up that you may complete your 23 credits as early as your junior year, maybe partway through your junior year. When a student has all of the credits meeting the requirements to receive a Cumberland Valley High School diploma, they will receive notification that they are eligible to receive a diploma. They can choose to accept that diploma and graduate. And we actually have students who are doing that now. We had 2 that are just graduating this January because they want to start college early. They feel they have a competitive advantage going in January. We have another young person who really felt that in the best interest of their future, they needed to start their career in the military and are going to graduate. But what happens when they receive that 23rd credit is they can accept a diploma or they can defer their diploma. If they defer their diploma, they must have on file a career plan. And that career plan, again, is lined up with the certificates that we're saying that we're offering the students. That way, they're not just staying and taking a plethora of courses out of interest or study halls or late arrival or early dismissal, but they actually then are taking classes towards a specific career. Which again, that's the kind of thing that the state looked at and said, well, that's kind of different. We don't think that's outside what the regs require, but no one said, hey, when you meet the requirements, you meet the requirements. Now, whatever you're going to do, you're going to have to do with a specific purpose. So that's where we are. And again, we have worked closely with KDIC to pull together. And I don't know, Laura, how much you're going to talk about any of the subcommittees, but all of these pathways that we've been putting together have been geared with economic need, economic opportunity, and the projections and connections that KDIC, I can pull people to the table, but I think when we sit down as a school district with KDIC and we jointly pull people to the table, we have some really interesting opportunities developing for our students.
Certainly going to look at this in more detail. I appreciate the outline we got just now. The important thing that's happening here, we're hearing more on this from you guys as well, is for a very long time in this country we've had education and we've had the working world, and we've gone different directions, unfortunately, different directions. So now I think there's much more of a, not just an acknowledgement, but a pathway for both to realize that they need each other and need to work together to fulfill both missions. So this gives us a really good concrete example of how that's unfolding. And but it also, back to your point about making sure the state's happy too, we've got a lot of things emerging here, but they provide students with great flexibility, but it's flexibility with a foundation as well. So it's meaningful, and that the value of it will be in the results for those folks who are participating.
So, and we're not trying to include the county commissioners in the list of people who've been supportive, because really this conversation started a year ago at the last finance meeting, and we made clear that we wanted to work, and you made clear that you wanted that the work that we were doing to ensure that it was scalable as well as shared with other county school districts. As a matter of fact, when I'm leaving here, I'm on my way to a 3-day meeting with all of the local superintendents in the intermediate unit. And guess what our topic of discussion is over the entire 3 days? Workforce development. And we're looking at ways that we can share resources. As a matter of fact, Carlisle Area School District has 2 students this year in our information technology program. We're talking with them about expanding the program and having an e-business strand as well as a web page design strand. And there's no use CV and Carlisle offering it. I send 10 kids there and they send 10 kids to my end. We're washed, and if we're one up or one down, we can settle up at the end of the year. But it certainly is a whole lot more cost effective than 2 school districts running the same program, half or only 3/4 of the way filled. So that has been an important part of the initiative as well.
I also want to just add, working with Cumberland Valley School District being our largest school district, we really use them as working together as a pilot program to show the ways with other school districts. So we're hoping that Fred has demonstrated to other school districts, like, hey, look at these wonderful things that we're doing to connect with the employers in the area. Now we want to bring you guys along, and I think meeting with this other superintendents, the other school at this 3-day meeting is to say, look, this is what we've been able to do. We're not saying we're the only ones that we want to bring you guys on board, because when we talked to you guys last, I think it was important that we don't just, that we work with all of the school districts to get them kind of in line doing some of the same things. So I think it's important that Cumberland Valley is really leading the way, but showing people we can do this. And it pretty much supplying a template to them to get them going, right?
Right, and I think that's one of the things that on a wider stage, the state, I was very clear with them. I've got people who are asking me, how can we do this? This seems scalable. Come show us, come talk to us about that. And I said, listen, we've got the wherewithal as a school district to argue with you that you are within the regs. But we've got smaller school districts that can't afford 3 years down the road to find out that we don't think they're in the regs and we're pulling back some reimbursement for them. So I want to go out with confidence that the things that we're talking about that are good for kids, good for our economy, are things that are good for those school districts to invest in as well. And they're, again, having the secretary come back with, and they ran it through legal for weeks, and we've answered a lot of questions, and now we've got a couple of I's to dots and T's to cross, but they are things that were actually in place that they didn't realize were there. They just wanted us to be a little bit more explicit about 2 points.
We know what that's like dealing with the lawyers.
The other thing that I think is important, in particular as we move forward over the next year, is to really focus on advanced manufacturing. Carnegie Mellon, actually it's an offshoot of Carnegie Mellon, the Advanced Robotic Manufacturing Group received $180 million. To go all the way to Kentucky to meet them at a Pathways conference to get someone's attention in Pittsburgh. But when you talk about what the mission of that organization is, and it is Defense Department money, and they are interested in obviously manufacturing that is related to defense, not specifically developing defense products, but developing the capacity to produce through robotics a wide range of goods. They are interested in workforce development, they are interested in logistics, and I said, well, gosh, you have to be talking about Cumberland County. Where else in the country could you talk? We are a major logistical hub. We are the center of defense for the entire distribution for a large part of our armed forces, and increasingly, Cumberland is not just defense, but they are providing materials and goods for all of Forest Service and a number of other agencies. And we really need, and Laura, we talked a little bit about this, about putting as the next step, a coalition of manufacturers together, not that we don't already have one, I think, but specifically to address some of the high-end things that are coming out and coming forward and are attracting business from out of the country back into the country, and we're going to attract them. Let's attract them to Cumberland Valley, particularly if they can be high-paid, low polluters, and really be a long-term base for what we need, that's great. I mean, and we still have, we're gonna have more kids that are gonna need jobs. We just posted our third highest enrollment summer in the history of the school district, and that's percentage-wise in actual terms of numbers, was the second highest growth year for the school district in terms of new students that came to us. I think the only year that beat us was the year that the new high school with the dome opened up. And other than that year, this was the highest, biggest summer. We closed expecting 809 students in our new elementary school, which I invite you to come see. It's
Yes, I'd
beautiful.
like to see that.
It was built for 850 students. As of yesterday, we had 878 enrolled. We have likely the same scenario in some of our other buildings. We do have a greater capacity at our elementary level because of that building, but we saw higher numbers at all of those than we had anticipated. Those large numbers are now moving up and into our secondary programs, actually through our middle schools. The crest is at 9th grade. We graduated about 640 students on Saturday, June 2nd, and on Monday, we welcomed the freshman class. We rolled them up, and we rolled up over 750 freshmen. So from Saturday to Monday, our high school enrollment increased by over 100 students. We anticipate that it will continue for the next 4 years, even if nobody moves out or moves in. The classes below the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade are all 100 to 150 bigger. And we're now actually seeing, which is very rare, first and second grade classes, which are as big as our 6th or 7th and our 8th grade classes. Second, third, and fourth grade, they're all over 730 students now, on their way to adding kids every single year on their track to high school. So doing these kinds of things is critical, not just from the point of view that preparing them, but we also see as a school district our role as being critical in attracting the kind of business and industry that our kids can go out and get jobs and stay local. I'll end with our other critical shortage in the county is teachers. I don't know if you've heard that yet, but that is
Front page?
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Was it today?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll see. It is a critical shortage. We are working with Shippensburg University so that we have a number of kids who want to become teachers every single year. Fortunately, a lot of them head out to Millersville or Pittsburgh or other places, and we think that we can prepare them to go directly from our classrooms into SHIP's classrooms, well advanced in the general population who are interested in being teachers, having had their first education course, having passed some certification tests and general knowledge that are required. And then hopefully they will stay home. Hopefully they will attract some of our minority students who maybe didn't think about education, who should, and should stay in Cumberland County after they graduate with a teaching degree. So that is our newest pathway that we're working on. We're hoping to get it launched in part at the beginning of next school year, but obviously in whole the following school year. It's not going to address the immediate need, but anything we're doing immediately is simply going to be a Band-Aid. We need to address this issue in a long-term, systematic way.
I just want to say, if I could, Dr. Witham, I want to thank you personally for your leadership on this issue and for thinking outside of the box, in how we're going to essentially move young people into job-sustaining or family-sustaining positions. I really like your commentary relative to what we can do to attract advanced manufacturing and tying that in with our defense installations that are in this area. So I mean, I think that's an excellent idea. You mentioned healthcare. Okay, we seem to also be the focal point for healthcare facilities these days. We currently have Holy Spirit, we've got Carlisle Regional, and we've got the West Shore Hospital, and now we're going to have Penn State Health. And I know that one of the things we were focusing on, I think, was advanced nursing or nursing. Okay? But these facilities, in fact, we were told by the folks from Penn State Health who took some time to come visit us here, there's going to be 1,000 jobs. Right? So it's not just nurses. You know, there's a lot of other positions. So I think I was interested when you started to talk about healthcare. What are your thoughts on that?
Healthcare, if you have an inclination to work in the healthcare field, there are amazing opportunities for our students. We've been working with, and it's been hard because they're coming, but they keep changing their managers and they keep selling to each other. But I think we finally got the right group at the table. We are working towards starting a program next school year where students will learn how to become properly certified to sterilize and maintain operating room equipment. You need a high school diploma and you need specific training. That may or may not be the job in the healthcare system that you want to do for your entire life, but if you are aspiring to be a nurse and you choose to graduate from high school and do that job while pursuing a nursing degree, they will pay literally 100% of your educational costs through the medical system as you are working. We are also working to graduate our students, those who are aspiring. Those, again, we're working to provide a pathway. The students will get a PCA certificate, a personal care assistant. It's different than a certified nurse assistant. It is more patient-centered, and it is highly sought after. And we had the same visits, and they're telling us that, really, our students who are even pre-med should go in with a PCA certificate as part of their resume. So we are working so that we would provide a pathway with HAC so that our students could graduate with a PCA or with the sterile tech and go immediately to work, go with a PCA or a sterile tech, work in the summer while they're going to school, or work full-time or part-time while they are pursuing their degrees. Healthcare is actually one of the main interests of Cumberland Valley students. It is when we poll our kids, that's an area that they're very interested in.
And I appreciate your discussing this with the other superintendents and the other school districts, in the region as well. I mean, we have a need for employees, and I agree with you 100%. In fact, we don't need to do anything to attract warehouses. They're here, they're coming, they're building them because we are a major. If we don't fix I-81 though, and everybody's sitting in traffic, we may not be so attractive to.
Well, we got heavy equipment operators, so we're ready to go.
Yeah, but in any event, I think our focus needs to be on how do we attract those businesses that actually are going to provide family-sustaining wages. And, and again, I think the healthcare field, again, with 1,000 more jobs coming in the next 2 years, are going to be available at Penn State Health, and then with the other hospitals that we have, the other healthcare positions that we have. I mean, there's going to be a need for employees, and there's going to be a need for the workers, and I appreciate what we're doing here. I think this is good, and this collaboration is so important. I said, I commend you for thinking outside the box. This should happen a long time ago.
Pathways that are targeting is about $38,000 as a median income. Our students, our families who are on free and reduced lunch tend to be single parent, 2 students, and that's the income at which you qualify for. We have less than 3% unemployment in the county, but I've got 20% of my students on free and reduced lunch, which continues to say we've got some of the hardest working citizens in the area just working the wrong jobs. They don't have the right skills. I'll close with the fact that I appreciate the compliments, but it would be impossible for me to do any of this without the support of the school board. Mrs. Dunn is our vice president of the school board, is here at the Dunn. Mrs. Gleim is a recovering school board member. And actually, they were just recognized statewide.
I know what that's like, too.
They were just recognized statewide by the Pennsylvania School Board Association as the 2018 Innovative School Board of the Year. And it was primarily due to thinking outside the box and supporting all of the work and directing the work in this area. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Doctor, just one quick question. Has the role of the Cumberland Perry VOTEC changed at all?
Yes.
Career pathway?
Yes, we just completed a strategic plan. We feel that we've been in concert with them the whole time, although we also think we've been very much an incentive for them to really look at change. We're not trying to compete with them, we're trying to fill a void between a traditional vocational education and maybe you don't need a 4-year degree. Healthcare is one of those areas that particularly that goes well. They are really looking at just introduced mechatronics or electromechanical for advanced manufacturing and a number of other areas. And they have been very responsive over the past year as a result of all of this work.
And I think it's important to say too, like a lot of the Cumberland Perry VOTEC, so as we put in a heavy equipment operators course, a lot of those that will start next summer, it will be housed at Cumberland Valley. Those kids at Cumberland Perry VOTEC, whether they're in carpentry or whatever else, can go over to Cumberland Valley School District and get those extra classes like the OSHA 10 and the Flagger Force and the other things that come with it. So even if you're going to be a carpenter and you come out with that, the businesses are like, wow, you already come into me with all of this, and it really helps to sell themselves. So
And we're adding CDL to that.
yeah, it's an
So
option.
you can come out with a residential carpentry certificate, CDL, and certified, or at least pre-certified to run heavy equipment, you get a job tomorrow.
So we're going to do that on the weekends.
Thanks for your summary. I also want to thank you for joining me in complying with the Wednesday dress code. Like Jack,
I'm driving to Annapolis, I could not do that with the time. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
It's ready to throw the horse.
Remember?
I forgot.
This is very lucky.
Reason to see.
Team building, I hate it.
During team building during the crisis. She was the crisis.
I'll go first.
We
Okay, next is the KDIC 2018 program update 2019 funding request.
No, I didn't. Okay, so this is our 2019 county funding request, and our strategy is really to identify and communicate community value with our military installations, retain and enhance military and community partnerships with our installations, and then be a catalyst for economic development, those public-private partnerships. Also to support and advocate for military minor construction, as you know, but also the construction projects that are going to enhance the military future viability. So as we looked at, okay, these are what our strategies are, now you can see that these achievements, we should tie right into that. So we've completed our military value assessment. Of course, we advocated for the installations in Washington, D.C., and completed the Exit 4849 study. In addition, we leveraged our county funds that we received with the state funding that we had as a local match, which is important because if you don't show that there's local support, the state is hesitant in giving you any kind of funding. Multiple visits to federal delegation to raise awareness and educate them on what our needs are, what our ask is of them, how we want to protect the military installations, their importance to our economic well-being, but also what the community brings to our military. We also did public awareness of our military value through events, sponsorships, and meetings. We're currently working with NSA Mechanicsburg on an energy development project that has to do with solar military leaders at the installations, which Vince, you were able to attend the last one. Thank you. Next is our 2019 military opportunities. So where are our opportunities? We're going to continue to help identify opportunities to improve. We also want to, examples of that is like the 48-49 study. We don't always know what's coming. We always are looking for infrastructure improvements that may just come up. Opportunities to collaborate with community through joint events. One thing that we noticed that's important and that we want to continue to grow in is as we're supporting events and sponsorships and different things for the military, as you guys know, the senior leadership roles rotate so frequently. So we're always trying to bring them right back up to speed again. And a good way to do that is maybe to start holding events with those senior military leaders, with our county commissioners, with other key stakeholders in the area, so that we can kind of tell them the work that we're doing in the county, but also, that's a good way to gauge them on our work, but also for them to let us know more about what they're doing. So I think that was an area that we want to kind of grow. And then workforce development, several issues that we've got from the installations. They want to add diversity to their operations. They also have rate differentials between the installations, which means that there's competition between them. And then the retraining and technical changes, as Fred talked about, we're noticing that more, like if I talked about to the general from DLA, he's talking about they're looking at robotics and drones. So if we don't have the skilled workforce here for them to pull from in these types of roles, we could very well, that could be a challenge for us in holding them there. Economic impact of installations in Cumberland County. This was a study that was done by the University of Pittsburgh that we helped them, helped actually participate in the survey, but also helped connect them to our military installations. So I'm not going to read through them all, but we can really see the impact overall that these three installations have, not only on our workforce, but also for our economy as well through the county. Our local defense funding to date, so state funding so far for this is the 17-18, 515,000. We've drawn down 445,000. We have 70,000 remaining, which will go to the Carlisle Airport feasibility study, which is in the process of being completed. We're hoping by the end of this year. And then also soft costs for the 48-49 study, which kind of entails more like the engineering costs. And Vince, you were at that meeting when we kind of brought up the exit 48-49 study, and we're hoping we can get some additional funding for that as well. County funding, the 100,000 for 17-18, remaining is zero. We really use that for military value assessment, pay for that assessment, and also our local defense group operations, which we didn't get any funding for our operations through the state in 18. For 2019, our local defense group funding request from the state is 110. So this is really the military value assessment that you guys were able to provide funding for. Came out three areas: the outreach, workforce, and transportation, which can also mean roadways, not just, like other like structures, like connectors and entrances and so forth. And then the funding towards the NSA, the joint land use study that we're working on with the stormwater problem in Hampton Township with NSA. And then there are some fence issues in the solar project that I alluded to earlier. Will also be worked on through some of that state funding, and we have that request in. And Shelby, we should probably know from the state maybe
By the year.
end of the year. Requesting from the county $50,000. This funding will be used to continue our advocacy at Washington, D.C. Also, we've discovered where we really want to focus this year is more awareness of our militaries. So the local media campaign is really to have like our marketing and communication team at CADIC So as we go out, for instance, to the quarterly meetings that we have at the military installations, get briefings by the top officials, it kind of just stays in that room, it doesn't go anywhere. So we're learning about what they're working on, we're telling them what we're working on, but who else knows about it? So I think it's important that if we can kind of spread the news to the community, and that's what we mean by more of a local media campaign, to get them more involved, more aware. One of the things that we were told early on was that even though there may not be a BRAC rate existing now, you need to prep yourself to make sure that the community knows who we are, what we do, and have those advocates, those people that advocate for you to understand that. So then when something does come up and there's a problem arises, we're not all of a sudden trying to jump on and get things going. We've already have everything in motion. And so then also we would want to use that funding for our workforce initiatives that are covered in those 3 areas. And I don't know if there's anything you would like to add, Sharon.
I was just going to say, one of the great discoveries of the local defense group is really validated that our local citizenry doesn't really know what happens inside the fence. They know there's something big there, they know it's military, they don't really understand the impact that it's providing and the wealth of economic impact that it's securing for Cumberland County. So in the event of a BRAC, we need all of our citizenry to be aware of the impact that losing missions within those confines of those gates, what that could do to the county, not to be in a kind of fear-mongering scenario, but we really want to focus next year on challenging our citizenry to better understand the impact of our facilities. We carry 3 to 10 facilities. There is actually talk about us also picking up the 193rd, which is sort of a special ops, highly secret group that trains and works out of Harrisburg, that right now does not fall under any local defense group initiative. So, it's highly likely that we will be presented with bringing them into the fold as well.
Is there going to be a specific, the local media campaign sounds very logical, but those things don't just happen. There needs to be very specific program
Yes.
planning.
Yes.
So
A
there's gonna be-
communication plan is being developed by our team internally to work that out. Some of it will, it probably will not be paid media, it will be earned media, PSAs, getting on WRTF, Smart Talk, doing those kind of things. It could include direct mail to each household. The details have not been worked out, but we will.
I'm assuming those will come before the Cape Board,
Yes.
which we all serve on, so we'll have
Yes.
opportunities to
Yep.
be part of that. Not to volunteer for anybody else's time, but we also have a pretty top shelf communication staff on
Yes.
staff here at the county. If you'd like to run anything by us,
That would be awesome.
I'm volunteering Samantha's time and energy back here, but I'm sure
Okay.
she'll understand. It's a
Hi, Samantha.
very important
All right.
aspect of what we do, so. Okay.
Yeah, we would love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask, similar questions. In terms of the Washington DC advocacy, what are we talking about, a lobbyist, or what are we talking about?
We have a lobby firm under contract.
Is it Cassidy?
Cassidy?
Yeah.
The contract's done.
It's done, so we would need to,
They connected us with a lot of, made a lot of connections with us in DC that we were able to help us plan and go for the day to.
Yeah, we met with the undersecretaries at the Navy and the Pentagon, and same with the Army, and then we also went to DLA headquarters, and we met with their.
So is
staff.
Katie looking to, renew a contract with the DC lobbying firm?
and it would be our assigned commissioners. Each installation has a commissioner. And they would be, along with local defense group members, they would be the group going down to meet and talk.
Just for some continuity, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Jonathan is now the commissioner of the Carlisle Barracks. And so he has Carlisle, and then we have someone with the NSA and DLA. So it adds some continuity as to our mission as
just curious as to where we're going with that. I mean, in terms of meeting with our congressional delegation, we shouldn't have to go to DC to do that.
No?
And I don't know that we need a lobbyist to do that either. In fact, I think what we heard from a couple of our state legislators is they would prefer hearing from us as opposed to a lobbyist. So I think it's something
Yeah.
to keep in mind as we do that. And then, yeah, I was going to ask the same question relative to the local media campaign, because, you know, I was interpreting that as advertising, you know, but it's not. So I think we also want to keep in mind that a lot of our municipalities, I don't know whether Hampton Township is still doing it, but a lot of them, the local municipalities have newsletters that they send out on a periodic basis.
Right.
That's free publicity there. You know, I think we might be able to, you know, take advantage of some of those opportunities to spread the word.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Just to address the lobbyist question. So I know we went through a pretty rigorous process with the appointment for them previously. So I assume we're going to revisit some of the stated goals and such. But your intention is to focus on a renewal, not on a,
Correct.
okay. I
And it
assume
would be
that
for
keeps-
specific objectives.
Okay. They're a pretty big name in DC too, so I'm sure that's not going to be cheap. But they also, as I recall, have a pretty substantial public relations
Right.
arm. So I don't know if you would have the opportunity to ask them if they could also, you know, at least take a look at your media plan or not. I know a big part of what they're brought on is not to talk to our delegation, but to talk to other movers and shakers in Washington who aren't aware
Right.
of us, and that is made important by the fact that we no longer have anybody with significant seniority or major standing on this issue that's necessary to compete with other districts that would like to take away our goodies. So any way you can find to leverage their expertise and their high reputation in that manner, perhaps, would certainly, I think, count in their favor.
Yeah. Yeah. Clearly, I think they proved their benefit over these past years in the prior contract. We would not have been able to make the trips and visit the folks that we named without their connection. It just wouldn't have happened.
They have a very good reputation.
So,
Anything else?
all right. Should we move on to the workforce?
Yes.
All right, so with workforce, we are trying to build a pipeline of highly skilled, sustaining jobs. We spent 2 years really collecting the data to come up with these 3 areas: heavy equipment operator, advanced manufacturing / pre-engineering. And it says advanced nursing, but we are looking at healthcare in general. Talking with Central Penn, they are putting in a phlebotomy, with Fred with the sterile equipment. So really continue to work in nursing in general. So we want to retain the existing businesses in the area, but we also want to attract and expand our business. So here were our achievements over the last year. For heavy equipment, we completed the program that will begin in the summer of 2019 at Cumberland Valley School District, and the apprenticeship program that will begin at HAC in I think it's September. And
We'll looking through.
yeah, we're looking through the simulators, which they didn't need for the program. It's just some bells and whistles. We do want those to be housed at Cumberland Valley School District. The advanced manufacturing, we also work with Cumberland Valley School District to complete, as he talked about, their pre-apprenticeship program. That will begin in September of 2019, and also we'll work with HAC on that, as he talked about kind of a dual enrollment. And then completed a dual enrollment, went down with Fred to Shippensburg University, met with their engineering department. As he already talked about, they're going to have a dual enrollment program that goes into Shippensburg University. We were working to try to get Messiah College on board as well, and they may follow after they see that everybody else is doing dual enrollments. And about 2 years ago, we had talked to Cumberland Prairie Tech about the importance of a mechatronics program / robotics. That is now up and running. So I think the important thing, and Fred kind of talked about this too, about the advanced manufacturing, and even with logistics and distribution centers, is that they are, again, going more towards robotics, more to automation. So they're kind of stuck in this path right now where they want to start doing automation, but they're doing things the old way. So it's sort of like, how do you transition with your workforce that you have as you want to start getting into buying more of the automation equipment, but you're still, running things the old way. So that's kind of the transition and where they're going right now. What it means is less workers, higher paid jobs, and that's what we want in this area. So I just wanted to let you know, as I'm meeting with the employers, more and more are going more towards
Yeah,
automation.
you need people to fix all this stuff
That's
in
where
bricks
the,
too, so.
yep.
Which we can, I think, still happens.
And overall workforce development, so we completed the middle skills occupation stigma survey in partnership with Leadership Cumberland. Fred had also made sure he sent that out, so the participating schools were Cumberland Valley School District, West Shore, and Carlisle. And we are currently putting together a publication on the results of that with webpage FX that should be done next week. So we'll make sure that you guys get a copy of that. That will also be sent out to the media. We also held a workforce event allowing our higher education institutions to share their programs with over 100 employers. Came to the event, and Gary, you were there. Thank you for your closing remarks. We also started engaging with the Workforce and Wages Task Force and community partners. This is a partnership that we've started working with Dickinson College on. So on one hand of it, I am working on a project with some students to look at building a asset map of a one-stop shop. So we have maybe there's employers, maybe there's educators, maybe there's job seekers, different types of people that want to go onto the website. That we have all of these services out here that pertain to workforce, but nobody knows where they are or how to begin. So we're working with we're working with students on a project for them to go out and meet with all of our workforce services and then come up with, okay, these fall in these categories, and then we're going to put them onto our website with a one-stop shop.
Yeah, so let me just highlight that last bullet. In July 2017, we were approached by the Partnership for Better Health. They asked us to come sit on a workforce group, and the topic of the workforce group was food insecurity. There's a food insecurity problem in Cumberland County. In particular, studies showed in Cumberland and also Carlisle. So for the first several months of meetings, I sort of wondered why are we having our agency sitting on a food security report group. But that group eventually ended up with two primary objectives. One was the major source of food insecurity in the county is the sustainable wage gap, that we don't have sustainable wages. And the other was a food system delivery problem. So the task force split up into two groups, of which Kate then became a really active member in the sustainable wage section, because it tied directly to the workforce work that we were doing. At the table included chamber representation, Dickinson College representation, the Partnership with Better Health, some private business, the Employment Skill Center, and others. And we finally, after a number of meetings, came up with three objectives. And one was what Laura mentioned, which was to document what are all the resources we have available in the county, and how do we tie them together, and how do we get people to know what door they can go in to get those services, to get them to sustainable wages. So that is being done by Dickinson College class right now, under the direction of Dr. Neil Leary. And Laura is working closely with that group in order to get that information gathered by these students. Hopefully they'll finish their work in the semester so that we will have results. From there, we're intending to take that information We're going to be creating a landing page just for workforce, county workforce, that will be tied to our website. Right now, there isn't one place that has everything. So we will basically be building that toolkit, that resource kit, and then we will be building a public communication strategy to deploy that information to the underemployed, the unemployed, the student, the mom and dad, the employer who needs to retool or retrain workforce. So for all of those audiences, our goal and our vision is to develop this robust communication plan that can be deployed countywide. And then one of our key business leaders, Kentucky, is leading another initiative, and that is to educate and develop the local employer base. Because just as we have a problem with mom and dad not knowing what their child's options might be, or a school district not being as innovative with pathway programs to provide some advanced learning while kids are still in college, like Cumberland Valley's developed. We also have a segment of our employer base that is very vocal about, I don't have skilled workforce, I don't have the right people, I can't hire people, unemployment rate, is crap. Bring me people, they're talking about the problem, but they themselves as an organization don't know how to help solve that problem. So we believe the employer has a major responsibility to being a part of that solution. And so our hope is to be able to convene a group of employers where CEO to CEO, these people can talk to those few in our county that are doing all the right things by retooling their old style HR practices and trying to move along, prod along those that are a little bit behind the times. So that's the result of this other workforce group that we are a key party to. We are tied to all three objectives in addition to our way of dealing with workforce in the county in working with Cumberland Valley School District and other educators in the county to provide pathways and provide context. So we're trying to attack it from different ways. This is not just a singular path. And I just wanted to share that with you, that there's a lot of pieces, it's complex, and with the time and proper resources, we will be able to tie this all together and see some really impactful
I
results.
was just thinking, Shereen, as you were speaking there about, bringing all parties together, the county and that. We were just at a legislative breakfast with the library system this morning, and they're, talking about their efforts with respect to workforce development. Are they at your table?
They have not been,
Okay.
and neither has education.
Okay. No,
So-
I think it's important as everybody, picks up on this.
Yeah.
Everybody get on the same page, who's doing what, where.
Yeah. We will. The neat thing that's happening here, there's a lot of cross-polarization happening, a lot of connections happening. We see the same people at different meetings, but we're all trying to do the same thing, and it's like, well, why are you trying to not duplicate? And this is an example where that's been discovered. And, I'll be frank, in July of 2017, I didn't really see it going anywhere. And every time I went to a meeting, I questioned why it was going. But we reached a really nice point where it became very clear, and it became clear to that group of the value that KDIC is providing in the workforce arena.
Yeah, and I don't know how this
So it
fits.
expanded our collaboration.
I don't know how this fits into it, but Glenn Miller, who's now working for the Department of Education, was one of the speakers today, and he was talking about one of the counties that's set up in their library system posts the state's career link and all that. Now, I don't know where all this fits into all this discussion, but I think some of the libraries are talking about that pretty well.
So I think that's a great point, because one of the things that the students are doing is meeting with these groups, and it should be the library as well. What they're trying to figure out is, what do you do, what do you do, what do you do, but also to identify the redundancies of what these services are being offered. Maybe there's new services people should be offering and not doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that comes out of it as well, but we'd love to add them to the list of people to interview.
Yeah, the coordination is important, that's all. Everybody
All right, so 2019 workforce goals, really to continue to increase awareness of the programs, opportunities, and partnerships through our marketing team. Also, we are pulling together the workforce asset map, as we just discussed, develop the website again through the partnership with the county, and then, as Fred had talked about, so one of the difficulties is that we were honed in, I promised you advanced manufacturing, I promised you heavy equipment, and then we said healthcare. So you gotta know, it's difficult, because Fred loved, like, we gotta get into IT, we gotta get into, so it was hard to stay focused in these three areas, and we wanna go back and look again and say, all right, what else should we be looking at, and how can we help work with other ones in collaboration? But we really tried to stay focused in these three areas. So now that the heavy equipment is sort of underway, as we just facilitated those discussions in workforce to get the right people at the table, we are now going to look at healthcare trends. So healthcare was the last part of it that I had promised that I would do something with. And so I have Highmark on board, I have Penn State Health, I have UPMC, and I also have Geisinger. And so they all are willing to come to the table, even though they're competitors, and share their workforce needs. And we are going to start discussing healthcare trends, as we know healthcare is changing quickly. And what does that mean? We have the right programs in place to support the healthcare as it changes. And what should we be looking at? And once we come up with those healthcare changes and trends, then what we want to do, we identify what they are, and then we want to pull the educational institutions to the table and say, because many of them are really willing to put in new programs, or do they just need to critique their program a little bit to make it up to date as we're looking at more home health care and some other things. So the first step really is to sit down with them. So I'm meeting with Penn State Health next week. Once that they've signed on, we will start to have our meetings and come up with the healthcare trends. Again, once that's done, we're going to bring educators to the table to make sure that we've addressed these trends.
That's worth a comment just in itself. But those healthcare facilities, that's cutthroat competition.
Yeah.
And I was struck at the higher education event out of the side a couple of weeks ago that
They were all there.
they're all there. They're all competing for the same base, for the same student body as well. And yet, that's the first we've seen them all come together in a single place where they can talk about what they're doing and they can show off,
Right.
even for their competition,
Right.
what it is they're doing. Now, granted, the audience there was with employer base, but you have all the schools there. And here you've got all of the healthcare folks. Those are not small wins. So for years I've been reading about this concept called co-opetition, where you have competitors who are working together in cooperation because it makes the whole pie bigger. So this is one of the first episodes where I've seen it up close and personal right here in our conservative little community, where you've got a lot of folks who are admitting, hey, we can learn from you, we need to change the way we're doing things, we have some things to offer and put on the table, everybody's putting.
And they're all trying to solve the same problems, right?
Exactly,
So,
and they're doing
yeah.
it together, so it's not it's worthy of special note.
Great. Again, we would then bring the educational institutions to the table. The next, just as we had hosted our event at Messiah College, Dickinson College president said, Laura, why weren't we offered this opportunity? We want to do it next year. So we already have 2 sponsorships that said we want to sponsor it right away. So we're going to hold that at Dickinson College. And maybe what comes out at that time are these changing trends. And maybe we have all the healthcare come up and say, this is what we see where healthcare is trending to. We'll see where we are at that point. So our request is $50,000 to continue the programs that we've been working on, that I think that we've really made progress in. We also want to talk to you about a new initiative, a consideration for $150,000 for what we call a county workforce matching grant program. So we would be the conduit that would administer it through CADIC. So this is like, say, for instance, Fred or somebody else, an Employment Skills Center, wants to start a program in healthcare to educate underemployed, unemployed, retraining, or whether it be students. If they come with a match, they would come up with an application with a request. We would have to sit down and see what that criteria is. And then as long as they're able to provide a match of that, they can ask for up to X dollars to get some of these initiatives and some of these programs off the table. And I know the county wants to help many, but you guys don't really have the time, and you really were kind of embedded within your workforce. So we just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what you gauge about.
Yeah, this idea actually came from the private sector as a way to incentivize employers that aren't being part of the solution, but they're vocal about the problem. So it was intended to be, okay, employer, what are your needs? And we would facilitate that just like we have been doing. We would identify what their needs are. If there were some areas of continuity amongst the employer sector, then we would work to help develop, identify a provider that might provide a retraining scenario. And we would then, that business would contribute to the cost of that program. And there would be a pot of money that would match it so that that program could be created to provide and meet the needs of that employer. So it's an idea that was brought up by the private sector. We thought about it. I think it's a terrific idea. If the funds are available, it'd be a good way to deploy funds for specific needs. We as an agency have 8 years of experience as a granting agency. We started 8 years ago with a pilot tourism grant program that has evolved over 8 years, and we've granted over $1 million, $1.5 million tourism product development. We have the knowledge and the experience to develop grant programs and administer them. So the suggestion is, if there are some funds available that could be deployed, this is a different way to support the workforce challenge that we're all involved in, and we feel very equipped to be able to work out the details of the program.
Let me ask a question on that. And this actually accelerates something I was going to ask about before, which is the degree of involvement we have with the Regional Workforce Investment Board, because they've come into some state dollars recently to try some new and innovative things. And previous director, Kevin, was very much into identifying opportunities to work in other states, funding pools that might be available. Now Jesse Cray is running that. And he continues to say that they're looking for some innovative things to do. It would seem to me, at least on 2 levels, that proposal specifically might be an area where they could provide you some guidance, maybe point some directions in terms of bringing that to fruition. But also in general, given the nature of what we're doing here, and the Workforce Investment Board has really changed a lot over the last few years. It's not just a matter of cranking through federal training dollars and putting up some numbers. They really are looking at fundamentally transforming the nature of retraining.
Do you sit on that board?
I sit on the local elected officials board. There's the board of directors is a corporate board, and then we meet the day after they meet. But I'm the county's representative to that, so I would be happy to act as a conduit. I've talked to Jesse about what you guys are doing in broad terms, but I think maybe deepening that conversation it might be really timely to do that. I think there's some real opportunity there, and they have some expertise, obviously, that can tap into that might help you with that last proposal as well.
I just think that I think I would like to see more detail on how this is exactly how this is going to work. It may not be a 50-50 match. I think your intention is what, 50-50 match?
Yeah,
Okay.
dollar for dollar.
But it could be something less than that too. And In addition to that, you know, I'm going to be interested in how this actually benefits Cumberland County and the citizens of Cumberland County and the potential employees of Cumberland County. So, because that's where the money's coming from, Cumberland County, if we do it.
Yeah, I guess maybe seeing a working outline of that, what your thinking is
Yeah,
on
at
that.
this point, it's
Scope
an
it a little bit.
idea.
Sunset.
We wanted to
Concept.
throw it out, yeah.
And if you feel it's worth taking it to the next level, we'd be happy to put
Well,
more.
yeah.
There's a lot more
to-
conversation to be had on
Yeah,
that topical
awesome.
matter, so an outline would be good. Good
Yeah.
working outline.
Take it to the next level.
Awesome.
I have a question on the prior one, the request that you have. What happens, or maybe the question is, what doesn't happen with those workforce goals if that amount isn't approved?
More of Laura's time would be spent financing than it already is. That's the reality.
I know you love that.
I'd like to be able to say I'd like to use that 50 to hire a new person to do something else so Laura can just focus on workforce. But that's probably not reality for this next year, but it's certainly in our future. But the more, it's a complex web, this workforce thing, and so the more pieces, the wider the web gets, you know, we have to be able to manage it and sustain it.
That's all. Thank you.
I'm glad to have the presentation made the point that the two strategic initiatives that you're charged with are very much hand in glove oriented.
Yes.
Going back to Dr. Wilkins' earlier comments about, we start this workforce development issue with our defense installations being very much a part of that. You know, you start with what you got, but we also got to keep what we got. So these two things are very, we can leverage them against each other as well. So they work, they're good choices. I think they continue to be good choices for Kate's public mission aspect. So
Thank you.
it seems you guys have put a lot of thought, a lot of effort into this, and as have the partners. We appreciate them being here to speak to this as well. But we have a lot of things that come out at us, but I have to say I think there's very few things that come before Board of Commissioners that has the potential for lasting benefit to the degree that can outlive this board and the next board and beyond to the degree that this does. So I'm happy to be working on this and support this.
Thank you. And if I could just, I would thank you for your past years of support. We are truly, you know, working hand in glove on one common goal, and that's a special thing that doesn't happen in other places. And we appreciate that. And I'd like to thank Shelby, who keeps us all straight under the covers of all these monies going in and out, and all these projects and all the compliance issues. You have been a gem, and Laura, you are workforce. And Cumberland Valley School District, if you hadn't have come to the table, we would not be where we are today.
Yeah, Fred really is a mover.
You
They had to spend that.
You stepped up, Nick, we thank you for that.
Actually, real quick, we have increasingly Cumberland County businesses, established business, who can't get to the table and compete with the low bars and the Eichelbergers and the Ames. And one of the things that we're seeing is we've had a commercial painting company, we've had a garage door installation company, we've had a company that does a lot of glasswork installation come to us and they say, we can't even get the kids out of Rotac. They're not thinking glass, they're not thinking garage doors, but we can pay these kids $45,000, $50,000 a year doing these things. We're looking at trying to start a diversified program where we would work with some, again, kids who chose not to go to Rotac and now they're not going to college, and maybe the adult community, giving them some general work skills, OSHA 30, flagger, CPR, number of certificates that they need, and then partner with the business to say, we'll do the educational side. You come in the summer and you teach them how to install garage doors or whatever it is, and then you can, from there, interview those kids, bring them in through an apprenticeship program, flat out hire them. I think if we could bring businesses into that educational arena, the program that could specifically be trained to fill gaps in Cumberland County small business, which is just as important part of the economic engine as the big Ames and the other companies. It would be important. I'm sorry to leave. I have to go bug my fellow superintendents about this very topic.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you.
I think these are both concerns. I mean, this really fits in need for this county as far as future employment jobs that create sustainable income. And for the military installations, this page, folks, that you presented, it says a mouthful. Employment, labor income, economic output, gross regional product. I wonder how many people really know how big these numbers are.
Yeah, I know.
Any other questions, comments, gentlemen?
Right now.
Thank you for doing this as early as we've ever done it. Usually we're on this. I think we were just here last
Right.
couple of months ago for this year, and now we're here for next year. So that's a great position to be in.
We'll get 2019 put to bed.
Thank you.
It's best to do this now versus later, and it's more transparent. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay off the horses. Okay, is there any other business to be brought in front of the finance?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, excuse me. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Steve Brandon as the chief clerk, chief operations officer of Cumberland County, retroactive to October 26, 2018.
A motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? Excuse me, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Is there any other business we have to address?
You want to take the other? Okay. Given the action that was just taken, I would like to make a motion that the Board of Commissioners appoint Sandy Boyle to the position of Chief Clerk and COO.
Effective
Effective immediately.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there any other business to be brought from the Board of Commissioners?
Just that
Yes.
I think it's important we point out that we're going to be putting out a press release
Yes.
on this and the notification to all of our county employees today. Is that
Correct. All right, if there's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn? So we're adjourned. Thank you all.